Good morning, this is World News coming to you live from Warsaw. I'm Salia Strzemska. And we begin in Myanmar, where a deadly 7.7 magnitude earthquake hit on Friday. The death toll has risen sharply overnight to over 1,000 people, with nearly 2,400 injured. The junta leader warned that more deaths would likely be reported, while the U.S. Geological Service has suggested that the final death toll could exceed 10,000. International aid has begun arriving in the country as rescuers continue to search for survivors. Much of the damage was in Myanmar's second largest city, Mandalay, close to the epicenter of the quake. The earthquake also hit neighboring countries, and rescuers in the Thai capital Bangkok are searching for construction workers feared buried beneath the remains of a collapsed high-rise building. And now moving to Ukraine, President Volodymyr Zelensky says Ukraine won't accept any mineral rights deal that threatens its path to EU membership. However, he also said it's too early to judge the dramatically expanded minerals agreement proposed by Washington and presented to Kyiv on Friday.
Zelensky said that the text was entirely different from an earlier framework agreement that he had been set to sign with Donald Trump. The Ukrainian leader told reporters that Kyiv's lawyers needed to review the draft before he could say more about the U.S. offer, the summary of which, however, suggested the U.S. was demanding all Ukraine's natural resources income for years. Zelensky also said Kyiv would not recognize billions of dollars of past U.S. aid as loans, though he did not say whether such a demand was featured in the latest draft version of the agreement. Apart from news regarding the mineral deal, Zelensky also relayed that Ukraine has agreed with other partners that it will receive expanded access to their intelligence data. Also on Friday, Ukraine's foreign ministry proposed establishing a temporary UN administration in Russia, starting with the city of Vorkuta, the easternmost city in Europe. The city served as part of the Soviet Gulag system, a labor camp where political prisoners were forced to work in. The idea was put forward by the ministry's spokesperson in response to Vladimir Putin's latest demand for external governance to be imposed on Ukraine.
In his evening address, President Volodymyr Zelensky highlighted key military and defense developments, focusing on Ukraine's efforts to boost drone production, speed up missile manufacturing, and produce air defense systems locally. Here's more.
During recent meetings in Europe and negotiations with other partners, we discussed localizing the production of certain air defense systems and their missiles in Ukraine. This is a necessary step forward. I'm grateful to all our partners supporting Ukraine's industrial and technological development. Everything we achieve now will contribute to the security of all of Europe in the long term. Defense Minister Rustem Umerov delivered a detailed report today, particularly regarding military aid packages from our partners. There are promising new agreements, and we expect another Ramstein format meeting in April, currently led by Germany and the UK. We are working on substantive content for this meeting.
We're not only talking about supporting Polish companies and creating space for their activity in Ukraine, we're giving concrete solutions. That was the message from Poland's Minister of Development Funds and Regional Policy, as he got the ball rolling on a business project designed to support the reconstruction of Ukraine.
Finally, something tangible for Polish entrepreneurs. A Deputy Minister of Funds and Regional Policy, Jan Szyszko, hosted a number of officials Friday to launch a new support facility for companies interested in doing business with and participating in the reconstruction of Ukraine.
Today, we're not just talking about supporting Polish companies and creating opportunities for them to operate in Ukraine. We are providing specific tools and solutions.
Along with the Ministry of Economic Development and Technology and the Polish Development Bank, the BGK, and its partners, they've allocated about 250 million zloty, or 60 million euro, worth of preferential loans targeting small and medium-sized businesses that would like to expand to Ukraine. Now, new arrivals to the Ukrainian market will get a 10-year loan for 2% interest, while those with experience could count on a rate as low as 1%. The maximum amount of the loan will be 10 million zloty. TVP World spoke to the Polish Deputy Minister of Funds and Regional Policy, Jan Szyszko.
We want to promote the investments and economic activity of Polish firms in Ukraine. We know that many of them want to, but haven't had the sort of market backstops or market guarantees to invest in Ukraine right now.
Operating in Ukraine carries with it a lot of risk. For this reason, most banks shy away from lending funds for that purpose. So this facility is a good step. But 250 million zloty, that's not that much in the grand scheme of things. We asked the minister if we could count on more.
This all depends on the demand that we will have declaratively. So far, we hear that many SMEs in Poland would be interested. If that will really be the case, we are ready to make that budget larger. 250 is there in the basket. If there's interest, there's going to be more.
That's very positive news, but the question of where it'll come from remains. This current basket is financed by reallocating European funds that were not put to use in the previous budget. Now, with much more funding on its way from the EU this year, this amount could realistically grow. For TVP World, Konrad Gorlinski.
The Belarusian Human Rights Center Vyasna reported on Friday that Anna Melnikova, the Warsaw-based chairwoman of the Coordination Council of Belarus, went missing on March 25th. Her disappearance was reported to Polish law enforcement by Belarusian oppositionist Paweł Latuszka. The Coordination Council, a political body created by Belarusian opposition leader Svetlana Tikhanovskaya during the 2020 protests, says the information was not published earlier at the request of law enforcement. The council also warns that representatives of Belarus's democratic forces remain a top target for the security services of the Belarusian and Russian regimes. According to Vyasna, Melnikova's daughters, aged 6 and 12, who lived with her in Warsaw, have also disappeared. Latuszka, one of the leaders of the Belarusian opposition and deputy head of the United Transitional Cabinet, says information suggests Melnikova is no longer in Poland. Earlier reports indicated she may have left the European Union. Melnikova fled Belarus after being detained twice during the wave of political protests in 2020. Donald Trump says he is open to making deals with countries on tariffs if the U.S. gets something in return. Speaking to reporters on board the Air Force One presidential jet, Trump said he would also target the pharmaceutical importers with tariffs.
After the call, you seem to be much more positive about Canada than you've been in the past.
No, I just think, I've always loved Canada, and we had a very good conversation with the Prime Minister, and they've got an election going on, so we're going to meet after the election.
On the pharma tariffs, Mr. President, you've been talking about the pharma tariffs and what to expect there. Are you going to exempt life-saving medications, or what could we expect?
Well, we'll be announcing it soon, but we have to bring pharmaceuticals, drugs and pharmaceuticals back into our country.
And what's the rate you're looking at? 15%?
We're looking at a certain number that will be enough to get the drugs and the pharmaceutical companies bringing their product into our country.
And what will China do?
We never want to have to rely on other countries for that.
And what will China
like
do?
we did at COVID.
Sir, on the card tariffs and just the reciprocal tariffs, a lot of countries are making gestures, including Britain, which has talked about reducing
They want to make deals.
services. They want to make deals.
They do.
Are you in a mode, or
Well, it's possible if we could get something for the deal. But, we've been taken advantage of for 40 years, maybe more. And it's just not going to happen anymore. But yeah, I'm certainly open to that. If we can do something where we get something for it.
Poland says it has no current plans to use the EU's cohesion funds for defense. That's in a sharp contrast to other member states who want to tap into the pool of cash for security efforts.
Poland currently has no appetite to use EU cohesion funds to bolster its military capabilities. Now, the country's funding official, Katarzyna Pałczyńska-Nałęcz, told reporters in the Belgian capital on Friday ahead of a General Affairs Council focusing on cohesion that she instead wants to use money allocated as part of the Recovery and Resilience Fund. Now, this is a program intended to to ensure that countries are ready for whatever threat comes their way. She said that she wanted to use cohesion funds for their original purposes, such as developing infrastructure like roads and ports. Let's take a listen to what that official had to say.
We believe that cohesion funds should be preliminary dedicated to cohesion, to the development of Polish regions, while the RRF, this new fund, we can use for strengthening defense industry, for dual-use investments and for investments into the critical infrastructure.
Now, these comments run in stark contrast to some other rhetoric that we heard in the Belgian capital on Friday, particularly comments from Finland's EU Affairs Minister, Hakim Strand. Let's take a listen to what he had to say.
Finland has a border of 1,340 kilometers with Russia, so when it comes to that, we need also to have some kind of special financing tool, not only from a cohesion perspective, but also more from a comprehensive security perspective.
Cohesion funds have become a bit of a hot topic in Brussels as the European Commission flagged that it would allow member states to apply for the pot of cash to bolster their military capabilities as part of the Rearm Europe plan. However, it is not totally greenlit just yet, as it requires member states to litigate it further at their own parliaments. Angela Skujins from Brussels for TVP World.
The 4 American soldiers who went missing at a Lithuanian training ground still haven't been found. The Polish Defense Ministry says its soldiers are now joining the search efforts.
A task force of several dozen soldiers from Poland were sent to Lithuania in an effort to help locate the American servicemen.
About 50 soldiers from the 16th EOD Regiment and units supporting the operation went to Lithuania to join the search, bringing with them about 10 units of specialized equipment.
The chief of the General Staff of the Polish Army reported that the soldiers of the missing unit are well known to the Polish military, and this is why the Polish Armed Forces have offered to help, sending over a team of experts.
Among these soldiers are professional divers, special equipment operators and sappers.
According to the U.S. Army reports, the armed vehicle driven by the 4 soldiers around the time they disappeared was found submerged in a reservoir.
Engineering equipment, medical equipment, high-capacity pumps, as well as technical security vehicles have been prepared to help deal with this situation.
The rescue operation continues, with the search team putting in their best efforts to find the missing soldiers.
A Polish copy of the Gutenberg Bible is now on display at the Diocesan Museum in Pelpin. The rare artifact can only be exhibited 4 times a year due to unsuitable conditions for showcasing the 15th century relic. Take a look.
In order for the Bible to be displayed daily and accessible to all interested visitors, exceptional conditions had to be met to preserve the work properly.
First and foremost, we are talking about temperature and humidity, which must be constantly monitored, as well as various types of dust that could appear.
Thanks to preservation efforts, the Bible will no longer be displayed only a few times a year, but can now attract visitors daily.
This is a breakthrough, and it's quite important for visitors. Many people used to come and were disappointed to see only a reproduction when they really wanted to experience this unique work of art. We had to ensure the right lighting conditions. When visitors leave the room, the light automatically dims to minimize exposure. We have an extraordinary heritage, extraordinary sacred art in the context of the Pelpin Cathedral. We have an extraordinary Gutenberg Bible, which is a heritage treasure.
The Gutenberg Bible was the first book printed using a machine with movable type made by Johannes Gutenberg around 1455 in Germany. Before this, books were copied by hand.
And that's it for our news update, but do stay with us. World Talks coming up.